Demand for electricity is surging. Power grid operators warn there could be shortages beginning in the next couple of years in Ohio. What's causing the concern? In part, data centers, which provide the essential infrastructure for AI. Ohio is in the top 10 with nearly 200. These centers are a drain on electricity.
Electricity bills are going up directly because they're competing with data centers for electricity.
This AI revolution is driving up the cost of residential electricity because of all the infrastructure needed. Some homeowners are hoping rooftop solar will offset their higher utility bills.
For many homeowners, regardless of income, their energy bills are a lot of times their second or third largest cost.
This woman couldn't put solar on her house because of too many trees, so she put it on her horse barn and is soaking up the savings.
I've only received one electric bill a year, midwinter, for the extra heating, so we're quite pleased.
Another challenge, beating federal deadlines to take advantage of tax credits.
Effectively, the price for cash and loan purchases of solar is going to go up 30% on January 1st, 2026.
On this episode, residential solar. Do the savings outweigh the costs? What renters get out of it? And are there enough residential rooftop panels to mitigate carbon emissions? Let's get into it. This is Brick by Brick, solutions for a thriving community.
Brick by Brick is made possible thanks to leading support from Greater Cincinnati Foundation, AES Foundation, and George and Margaret McLean Foundation, with additional major support from Lori Johnston, the Robert and Adele Schiff Family Foundation, Murray and Agnes Seasongood Good Government Foundation, and more. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to Brick by Brick, where we're highlighting solutions for a thriving community in Southwest Ohio. I'm your host, Ann Thompson. 5 million U.S. homes have rooftop solar. That's about 7%. The number of houses has tripled since 2017, and before recent changes to federal tax credits were announced, solar overall was on track to become the largest source of electricity generation in the U.S. by 2050. Analyst Julien Dumoulin-Smith, managing director at the global investment banking firm Jeffries, covers the power utilities and clean energy sectors. He says California has been the epicenter for the residential solar conversation.
I talk about California being sort of a leading indicator of trends in energy and electricity in the environment. And I think in this way, its manifestation really is a leading indicator of residential solar, right? Where rates went up, consumers looked around and said, like, what can I do to mitigate the increases, especially as I myself might be consuming more?
Why do we need an increasing amount of electricity? For one, to support data centers. You know, those gigantic warehouses housing computer equipment to propel things like cryptocurrency and AI. Ohio has nearly 200 of them. Most are near Columbus. 20 are in Cincinnati, and a handful of them are in suburban Dayton. Northern Virginia is known as the Data Center Alley because it has the most, more than 500. And one study found data centers would drive up that state's energy usage 183% by 2040. Across the country, many people are concerned the infrastructure needed will increase their residential utility bills.
And I think what we're seeing, especially in the Mid-Atlantic of late, there are bills going up in a rather acute way, driven by the factors that we're talking about, that are data centers, right? First and foremost. And again, in a world in which, you know, it's not just the need to sort of drive inflation because construction materials and the sector itself is building out rapidly, but in this way, electricity bills are going up directly because they're competing with data centers for electricity.
AES Ohio has filed for a 14% increase, which, if approved, would force customers in Dayton and other parts of the state to pay $261 more a year. For transparency, the AES Ohio Foundation is a supporter of Brick by Brick. The other supplier, Duke Energy, started increasing electricity rates this summer for Cincinnati residents. The 25% hike translates into an average $10 extra a month. Both companies say they need to cover the cost of infrastructure improvements. This leaves homeowners looking for solutions. Rooftop solar is one way to lower electricity bills. Most households use 811 kilowatt hours per month, and the average 18 solar panels generate more than that. But it's gotten harder to finance residential solar panels given upcoming changes to the federal tax code. Under the budget reconciliation bill, homeowners have until December 31st to install solar panels and lock in the 30% tax credit. In the following years, leasing companies will essentially take over the market and indirectly pass savings onto the consumer.
It's not as if, the clock strikes midnight, and if you haven't installed it and interconnected it to your utility, you don't qualify. It's not quite that simple, right? Actually, there are third-party leasing companies. Think about this as like your consumer car lease, if you will, right? Think about the analog here, right? Where you have these residential solar companies that can offer you a lease, and because they're a commercial entity leasing, their tax credit doesn't actually expire yet. And so you'll see the industry extend well beyond the end of 2025 and the technical expiration of the consumer credit under the guise of these leasing arrangements, right?
There's a lot of fine print, and you can find that on our websites thinktv.org and cetconnect.org. As you might expect, interested homeowners are flooding the market to install rooftop solar before the end of the year to get the tax credits. Both Cincinnati and Dayton sustainability offices are getting lots of questions on the new rule changes and ramifications. Brick by Brick's Hearns Laguerre Jr. checked in with a couple of homeowners who already have it and one who's adding more.
As the sun rises in the West End neighborhood, the energy bills fall in Chris Heckman's 1870s home.
Our interaction with the grid, it's less energy. If you were the power company, if you were Duke looking at our house, you would assume that it's a much smaller house because of the amount of energy that we're using.
Chris's home is fully electric, and his dependence on the electrical grid is less because of the energy his solar panels bring into his net zero home.
Net zero means that you are generating most of the energy that your house is also consuming.
Chris has a battery in the basement of his home that stores electricity generated by the solar panels. There is even an app to track the amount of energy being used throughout the house.
So right now you can see that the energy is coming down from the roof and going to the battery to power up the battery and going to the house represented by the windows. And right now the grid, I'm not using any grid power. It's at zero.
At 3,600 square feet, Chris pays about $160 a month in electric bills in a house where he, his wife, and their 2 kids stay. Depending on the season, he uses about 25 to 60 kilowatts a day, and his solar panels generate a little bit less than that. Chris doesn't only want to sustain his energy usage.
As small as our row home is, we're able to generate about half of the electricity that our home uses throughout the year.
Chris also wants to sustain the environment.
Other than collecting free energy from the sun, it also doesn't emit any of the gases that cause climate change or cause the atmosphere to trap some of the heat that comes from the sun. It's part of what we call clean energy for that reason. And I hope that everybody will consider looking into solar for their homes for that reason.
Chris believes in this clean energy model so much, he installed solar arrays on his new residential property called Pleasant Flats. I'm standing on top of this 5-unit residential building created by his development company called Pleasant Cake LLC. The solar energy will be converted into electricity to meet the specific needs of the residents. Any excess energy goes back into the grid in a process called net metering. Will the solar array provide immediate cost savings for the residents that move in?
The costs associated with the business, running the business, that'll be lower because of the solar panels.
So the residents will, I guess,
by extension, they'll get a little bit of, a little bit of a cut there.
But Chris tells me there's other ways to save.
Solar is really great, but insulation works 24/7. And that is the biggest thing that, as far as our residents are concerned, is going to save them the most money.
Also looking to save the most money are Catherine and Eric Estill in the village of Mainville in Warren County. They put their solar panels on the roof of their horse barn because they have trees that shade the roof of their house. For the Estills, solar panels have been
Very successful. I've only received 1 electric bill a year, midwinter, for the extra heating. So we're quite pleased with the results.
But there's one thing that propelled them to go solar in the first place.
We had considered it earlier, like about 10 years ago. At that time, the payback wasn't sufficient. But with a 30% federal rebate, that was attractive because we got that money back right away. Well, almost right away.
By the end of the year, that rebate is going away due to the reconciliation bill. With all the changes soon to be affecting the solar industry, I reached out to Louis Connel, the director of sales for the solar and insulation company, Sustainergy. They're the same company being used on Pleasant Flats. Using solar for electricity, is that the future?
Yeah.
Why?
The grid burden is only growing, but the supply is not. Renewables are inevitable because renewables are scalable, they're cheaper, and they're a lot more sustainable. So they're better for the pocket of everybody, and they're a lot more better for the earth.
Between the removal of the solar credits by the federal government and the supply and demand of these solar panels, the solar energy industry will be facing different challenges in the near future. One of those challenges is folks trying to get their solar credits. For companies like Sustainergy, Louis tells me that people should place their orders in early fall to get their solar panels on time. And?
Thanks, Hearns. We'll talk to you later in the episode. As you heard in Hearns' story, paying for rooftop solar is not easy. On average, a system costs $20,000 to $30,000. Solar panels in Ohio are more, an average of $33,000. Federal tax credits expiring at the end of the year would pay $10,000 of that. Without tax credits, it would take 17 years for homeowners to earn back their solar investments. There are federal, state, and local grants and rebates through utility companies you might be able to get. How do you cover what's left? Andy Holzhauser is partner and co-owner of Donovan Energy in Cincinnati. He says a traditional bank isn't usually an option, despite a green mindset.
A home or a building that is more efficient, there's a lot of data in the marketplace that says it's a more stable building financially. You're reducing operating costs in that home or building, and thus the home or building owner has greater ability to repay a loan. That said, you can't. It's hard to just go to a bank and get an off-the-shelf financing product.
Green Banks offers savings. The nonprofit Columbus Region Green Fund is one. Later this year, it will offer a loan that's not determined by your credit score. It's underwritten on your ability to pay, like sending in your utility bill on time. That's important if you don't have a good credit score. And Executive Director Zach McGuire is also encouraging apartment building owners to get solar and pass the savings onto their renters. The organization does this by having contracts with both of them.
That can be done in a couple different ways. That can be done through direct utility bill management. So if it's a sub-metered facility, meaning every unit has a meter, the owners of those facilities can actually track the impact on the meter, so each resident sees that utility cost savings. Or if there's a master meter, meaning there's not individual meters in each unit, you can actually pass through those same financial savings that you would otherwise get on your utility bill through rent reduction.
Or some other type of benefit that is equivalent financially. Coming up on Brick by Brick, how underserved communities can benefit from rooftop solar.
We're confident that we're going to be able to do it. The question is just what types of resources will we band together in order to make it happen?
And what research shows about the effects it can have on the household energy burden.
Our paper is one small part of that effort to identify solutions.
That's ahead on Brick by Brick.
Brick by Brick is made possible thanks to the generous support of so many, including Diane and Dave Moshe, P&G, the Camden Foundation, the Stephen H. Wilder Foundation, TJ and Susie Ackerman, Patty and Fred Heldman, a donation in memory of Frank and Margaret Linhart, and more. Thank you. We couldn't do this work without you.
A thriving community is not just a place, a stretch of sidewalk, or the buildings. It's also the people that call it home, that interact with it every day. That's us, you and I. Hi, I'm Mark Lammers, executive producer for Brick by Brick. Whether it's about housing, health, the environment, or a neighborhood need or innovation, we want to hear your thoughts. Your input helps guide the solutions journey that we're all on together, and the feedback is also important for Brick by Brick's sustainability. to give us your thoughts. Just click the link in the podcast show notes or explore all of our solution stories on the webpage and click the big green button to share the latest from your neighborhood. Building community around solutions. It's just another service and benefit of your local public media. Thank you.
Welcome back to Brick by Brick. How much sun does Ohio get anyway? And is it enough to make rooftop solar worthwhile? The state averages more than 170 sunny days a year, and on a government fact sheet said, in 2024, Ohio had an installed solar capacity of 3,600 megawatts. That's not just residential solar. The 3,600 megawatts is enough to power about 464,000 homes. Cincinnati says it's working toward a higher Department of Energy designation to reduce solar energy barriers, clarify and simplify the process, and improve solar market conditions. Both Cincinnati and Dayton have solar farms to generate power. We'll cover solar farms on another episode of Brick by Brick. 5 Ohio communities, including Cincinnati and Dayton, were looking forward to receiving millions of federal dollars to provide solar to low to moderate income residents. But the federal government has canceled the program called Solar for All. In Cincinnati, Director of Environment and Sustainability Ollie Kroner says the money was designated for a community solar array on a former landfill, designed to save 1,300 low-income residents 20% on their electric bill. Dayton planned to use the money for 900 rooftop solar installations for low-income households. Kroner and Dayton Sustainability Manager Meg Maloney are now trying to regroup. In a statement, the 5 Ohio cities say electricity bills and broader cost of living expenses are rising, and the Trump administration is cutting a program that would save participating Ohio households on average nearly $400 per year on their utility bills. They say, quote, terminating solar for all funding, including grants already awarded, is harmful, unquote. Beyond that, Ohio has a solar renewable energy certificate where every 1 megawatt hour of renewable energy generates a credit. You can buy or sell this certificate with the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio. But because there's an oversupply, this might not translate into much savings for the homeowner. With increasing government cutbacks, how can low to moderate income homeowners access rooftop solar? There may be a way in Cincinnati that's scalable in other cities. It's a pilot program from the quasi-governmental agency, the Port. Of 8 new income-restricted homes it built in Walnut Hills on Concord Avenue selling for $220,000, 4 have solar panels. Alex Powers just bought one.
I mean, we live in a world of Duke Energy. There's not really much other options out there for us to get energy from. So it's like whatever they say goes. And if there's anything I can do to bring that price down, especially in an all-electric home, I'll take it.
The Port, as part of the Hamilton County Land Bank's residential solar initiative, used expiring federal tax credits and fronted the rest of the cost. It installed 13 solar panels on the south-facing roof of each home. That's a $16,000 system which the homeowner will lease at zero cost for 5 years. The Port's executive vice president and general counsel, Andrew Garth, says after 5 years, he or she owns the system and can transfer it to a new homeowner when the property is sold.
We at the Port have a focus on sustainability and environmental issues generally that challenge especially low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods. So ranging from environmental justice issues to brownfields cleanup. Solar is an option that we started considering when we saw some of the federal funding coming through. And this generated really a dialogue among a whole host of public and private partners, the city, the county, Cincinnati Development Fund, the Cincinnati Business Committee, and others. We worked in order to make a model that could be applied more broadly.
The Port says this is scalable even without the federal tax credits. He estimates a monthly $100 savings for the homeowner, translating into $13,000 over a decade. Meanwhile, PhD candidate Madeline Yozwiak, who studies clean energy and issues related to climate change in the electricity system, wanted to find out how much of a financial boost having rooftop solar would give the low to moderate income. So she led a study to find out. It was a collaboration between her Energy Justice Lab at Indiana University and the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Their findings showed that rooftop solar does lead to a large reduction in energy insecurity among low to moderate income households within the U.S.
It's between a 15 to 46% reduction across the different measures that we looked at. And the different types of energy insecurity, or the indicators that we asked households about, include their ability to pay their utility bill each month, their ability to keep their home at a comfortable temperature, and their likelihood of needing to forgo sort of needed expenses in order to afford their utility bill.
The effect was even greater if the homeowner was able to save up for the entire system rather than leasing it over time.
And what that suggests to us is that because households who pay monthly now sort of trade one utility bill for a lower utility bill but a solar payment plan of some form, whether that's a lease or a loan, their net savings month to month can be lower than sort of this absolute reduction for the households who pay upfront.
Yozwiak says the savings from solar can be greater as electricity becomes more expensive. She wants the low to moderate income to have options.
Our paper is one small part of that effort to identify solutions. But I think whether or not there are going to be funds to deliver that solution, and whether the cost of that solution changes in the near term, it's going to be difficult to say.
One thing we haven't talked about too much is the economics of solar and how it can benefit a community. Here's the executive director of the Columbus Region Green Fund, Zach McGuire, again.
We had a study done by Ohio University as to what would the impact be theoretically if we deploy 40 megawatts worth of community-based solar projects, both at the residential and sort of multifamily level. And that's where we found, by doing that study, that just 40 megawatts of solar would create 600 jobs, 600 new jobs. It would create upwards of $120 million in economic impact. And over the term, over the life of those solar projects, it would actually create millions of dollars in actual savings to the nonprofits and their utility costs.
As you might guess, repealing the solar tax credits could have a negative effect on the economy. According to the Economic Impacts of Repealing Technology Neutral Tax Credit Study, by 2032, 19 states, including Ohio, would see higher energy prices and fewer jobs. It's estimated Ohio would have nearly 6,000 fewer jobs, an increase of 6% in electricity prices for households, and a 10% increase for businesses. We'll be watching the impact. We have links to a lot of the information we've been telling you about on our website. Some of it can be complicated at cetconnect.org and thinktv.org. On the website, there's a big green button where you can also tell your housing story and any solutions that you think we should all get behind. That's also where you'll find web articles, videos, and links to our TV docuseries. All right, we're all back together again to talk takeaways, and we welcome to the microphone Emiko Moore.
Hello.
And Hearns Laguerre Jr.
Hello.
Solar panels are expensive, and low to moderate income residents may not be able to easily access the panels and have the money to pay for them. Many people were disappointed to hear that the Solar for All program is going away. Cities who were trying to fund programs to serve low to moderate income residents. But there may be another way. The port here in Cincinnati is pretty innovative, and even with the federal tax credits going away, they are putting solar panels on affordable housing that they have built. And the way they're doing that is, yes, they use the federal tax credits, but they realize that was just 3,000 of the 16,000. They think they can come up with that. And they are trying to get the business community to come forward, and the port just fronted the rest. So that's the way they were able to put solar panels on the houses for the residents for free.
What's interesting is their estimated monthly savings for these homeowners would be $100 a month, and that could be a huge impact for these low to moderate income families. You know, even if you're on a fixed income, that's a huge savings. That's a car payment, that's a medical bill payment, or for parents getting school supplies.
You know, it is a great savings, Emiko, about, I hate to be the Debbie Downer in the group, but similarly to how when we covered the port during our first episode of Brick by Brick, we discovered that a lot of people admired what they were doing, but they weren't able to replicate it in their city. So similarly to the solar program, it's great, but I wonder, can people replicate it, and will it have the same impact as those federal, credits?
I don't see you as the Debbie Downer. I see you as the realist. That is a good point. I asked that question to the port, and they are discussing with the Ohio Department of Development ways to have just a plug-and-play system for other communities. Because it is true, the port has a lot of power and they have a lot of money. Not all communities have that. But maybe there still is a way to get the business community on board, raise enough funds that they can serve this part of the community.
I really like this forward thinking that the port is doing.
I do appreciate it, and I do look forward to seeing how they react and how this program will have an impact. But regardless, I think the solar industry will face some ebbs and flows in the next couple of years. Connel from Sustainergy told me that although the solar industry will take a hit because of the solar credits going away and just because of businesses might be going bankrupt, the solar energy is here to stay, especially because of our over dependence of the grid and just our search for finding other ways to get energy. So I think there's a lot to look forward to, a lot of questions left unanswered, but we're gonna stick to it.
And we can answer some of those questions in our web articles. So check it out, cetconnect.org and thinktv.org. Thanks, guys.
No problem.
Thank you.
Coming up on the next Brick by Brick, too many pedestrians and cyclists are getting hit by cars. How can we make our streets safer?
My goal is really to build something like the raised crosswalk that is effective, but also still feels kind of smooth when you drive over it.
Yes, there is a science to the speed hump. We take a closer look at that solution and others. That's our show. If you like what you hear, please rate and review our podcast. It makes it easier to find. We hope you learned something, and if you did, please tell your friends and family about it. For Holzhauser Jr. and Amico Moore, I'm Ann Thompson. We'll be back soon with more solutions. Take care. Our show is produced, hosted, and edited by me, Ann Thompson, with reporting and story editing from Holzhauser Jr. and Amico Moore. Our executive producer is Mark Lammers. Audio sweetening provided by Mike Schwartz. Zach Kramer runs the lights and cameras. Derek Smith is our production specialist, and Jason Garrison is our production manager. Kelly May heads up our marketing and promotions, along with Mike Shea and Bridget Dillenberger. Alyssa Stephenson handles the website, and Steve Wright and Josh Lusby are our designers. Bill Dean and Andreas Kruja are the engineers for the show, and our chief content officer is Colin Shinamblo. Our music is from Universal Production Music. Brick by Brick, Solutions for a Thriving Community is a production of CET and Think TV, Southwest Ohio PBS member stations.